Welcome everybody to the Aristocrats Soccer Podcast, the elite soccer podcast in all of soccer podcasting. It's David Harris. I'm here with co-host Jake Keegan. Jake, how are you?
Good. What's up, everyone? We have an extra special guest here today. Davey, you want to introduce him?
Yeah, actually, we have an elite guest because all of our guests are elite. Really excited. Brian Maisonneuve. He was a real favorite of mine back in the day. And Brian probably doesn't remember this, but I did when I was doing some interviews back a good long time ago now. We did one on email, and I just really enjoyed that. And Brian was really forthcoming. So, Brian, welcome to the show. Thanks so much for joining us.
Well, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, it's a real pleasure for me, and I think for Jake, it's a really good opportunity as well. And for anybody listening, hopefully they're familiar with your career and everything you've accomplished. But we'll touch on some of the current events, and then also go back into some of the days when you were helping to pioneer a new soccer league in America called MLS.
Yeah, it's man, like you said, it seems like yesterday, but yet it was quite a long time ago.
Yeah. So I thought maybe just to start off, before we dig back in the day, I was really interested reading about how now you're in the process of taking pretty big university in Ohio State men's soccer program and really turning that program around. And I'd love to hear about what you're doing currently and how that's going. Obviously we've got a pandemic, so that's kind of put a damper on things, but seems like you're making progress there.
Yeah, no, it's been a lot of fun. It's like you said, Ohio State's a wonderful university. I was obviously here 15 plus years ago playing for the Crew back from 96 to 05. And, I say it all the time. When we left in 05, when I retired, my wife always said, if we have a chance to come back to Columbus, let's do it. We love Columbus. The city's great. And then to be part of this athletic department, to be part of this university, to be in the Big Ten. I grew up in Big Ten area. I played at IU. So again, part of the Big Ten. So to be able to come back to the Big Ten, or actually stay in the Big Ten, is pretty special. And it's a great university, great athletic department. So it's been a lot of fun.
What is this 2020 year? It's been crazy for everyone. How has that looked for Ohio State men's soccer?
Oh, the whole year?
You can cut it short if you want.
It can take a while. It's been just like everybody else. It's been an interesting year. I think the hardest part in March was, I started in 2018. I got hired in right when school got let out. So in May, which was an interesting time, the timing of the hire, just because I literally was able to address the group for about 40 minutes in the locker room. And then I said, I'll see you in 3 months at preseason. So it was just an interesting time, just learning everybody. Cause the first time they heard my voice on the field was in preseason. So that was interesting. So that 2018, it was a challenging year, but we knew it was going to be, administration, kind of said it'll be a challenging year with the timing of everything. And, but I thought we turned some really good corners by the end of 2018, definitely in 2019. And then all of a sudden March comes in 2020 and you kind of hit the brakes on everything, all the momentum that you're building and, the culture piece, the soccer piece, everything that we were developing kind of just came to a screeching halt. So that was tough. Now, I know everybody could say that because everybody's program came to a screeching halt too. But when you're building something and you got that momentum going, that was tough. But we were still able to do some stuff on Zoom and do what we could, just like everybody else did. And now that we're back at it, this fall's been extremely interesting. The first time we heard that the season was going to be postponed, we were literally stepping on the field for our first training session, and then we got pulled off right before we were able to start. And so that was an emotional time, as you can imagine, for the seniors. And then just the ups and downs of what the fall has been with COVID and protocols and procedures. And but I'll tell you what, the last couple of weeks have been fantastic. We had about 5 weeks of non-contact training. So, a lot of passing patterns, a lot of finishing, a lot of patterns of goal. And I say it a lot, the first couple of weeks we're fine. By week 4, the guys were starting to get a little bit antsy. And by week 5, we were just trying to keep them engaged. And then luckily we were able to test the right amount of times to be able to have the contact and be able to compete and play and small sided and 11s. So that's been the last couple of weeks, and that's been great. So again, it's just so much fun to be back out there training and playing and getting after it.
Just a quick thing that came to mind for me, even back in the day when I saw that you were coaching college soccer, is, what is the recruiting process like? How are you able to get the best talent to come to Ohio State? And, going out there to recruit a player, as, you're a little different than a lot of the college coaches, whereas, are the recruits aware that, they're being recruited by a guy who's played at an extremely high level, played in a World Cup against Germany? There's not a lot of, there's some very accomplished people in Division I college soccer, but not a lot of coaches with that kind of background.
Yeah, no, I mean, first of all, Ohio State's it's a great place. I mean, it sells itself. The athletic department, we're fortunate with all our resources, our facilities, to play in a great conference in the Big Ten. I mean, it really sells itself. For me to come and just some of my playing experiences and my coaching experiences, I was just talking to some people today, and it's just I'm blessed to be able to pass on those experiences to recruits that want to, come to college, get an education, play at a high level, and then continue to play when they leave college. I love passing on, my experiences in in Major League Soccer and obviously with the national team. It's just, I'm pretty fortunate to be able to pass that on to the guys, and it really is a blessing, and it's a lot of fun.
Would you be targeting, because here I'm in New York, I'm on Long Island, so I know some of the colleges and the Division I programs in the area are looking at the guys from the Red Bulls, the NYC, FC Academy players. Would you be looking at the Crew Academy players? Would that be a focus of yours? For
sure. I mean, the Crew Academy, they're doing a great job. And they got some wonderful players, FC Cincinnati as well. We're pretty fortunate. We got some really good soccer in Ohio, between Cleveland, Toledo, Columbus, Cincinnati, Dayton, some big cities that have some really good soccer coming out of them. So we're really fortunate that, just in Ohio, a lot of good players that have grown up as Buckeyes want to continue to be Buckeyes. So we're fortunate that way.
The one question I always wonder from college coaches is, I know Sorofsky at Maryland, he's a big proponent of the fall, spring kind of one season of playing meaningful games year round. Obviously, it's different this year with the pandemic and all that. But where do you kind of sit in terms of the development of players? Do you think it's better to have 10 important games in the fall, another 10 in the spring, and have the national championship in the spring?
Yeah, I'm a big fan of the split season, the 21st century model. Obviously there'd be some things that we got to get ironed out in terms of facilities and seasons and stuff like that. But Sasha's done an unbelievable job. He really spearheaded that split season model, putting it together. And I think it's great. It's just, it spread things out, just in terms of, like you said, meaningful games. Right now we play a lot of games, sometimes, 3 games in 8 days, along with travel and school. And it wears on the bodies. We're lucky if we get 1, maybe 2 really good training sessions to be able to develop and grow or fix things if you need it. A lot of it's about recovery and focusing on the next game. But, but at the same time, you get in that rhythm of the fall where you're playing a lot of games. It's funny when you have a full week, you're craving that midweek game just because, how it is when you compete, you just get in that rhythm. But I'm a big fan of that split season model.
Yeah.
If you wouldn't mind, I'd maybe like to just take a step back now and to dig into your playing career a bit. One of the things I was interested in particular with the national team going back in the day is that you were able to play in both the Olympics in '96 and then the World Cup in '98. And if you just want to maybe touch on some of those experiences that, really stick out with you even today.
Yeah, no, I mean, those are two just obviously incredible experiences. The 96 Olympic being here in the United States, the Atlanta Olympics were great. We didn't play in Atlanta, but we played in Birmingham and we played in DC. And, it was that 96 Olympics were really incredible. One of the stories I tell is, our opening game, we match up against Argentina, and Argentina was loaded. Even, the Olympics, you have to be 23 or under, and you can have a couple overage players. But their Olympic team was basically their national team. It was one of those, they were kind of going through that youth movement. So, all of our guys coming out, when we were doing the scouting report, you look at our roster and it's Indiana University, Virginia, North Carolina, and you look at their roster and it's Man United, it's City, it's Juventus and Inter Milan and stuff like that. And it was unbelievable. And we weren't able to go to the opening ceremonies because it was the day before our opening game against Argentina. So we actually soccer had its own opening ceremonies at Legion Field. So we actually had to warm up in the parking lot and in the locker room because we couldn't get on the game field because they were doing the opening ceremonies. So the first time we walked into the stadium, Legion Field was about 96,000 people. I just got done playing in the College Cup at Davidson, who did a great job. And we had like 14,000 people at our national championship, which was a great environment. I mean, it was awesome. But warming up outside, we roll into the stadium and 96,000 people all chanting USA. You look over to your left and there's Argentina. I was playing left midfield at the time. So my main responsibility was Javier Zanetti, who was about 4 years at Inter Milan. And I just got done playing in the College Cup, and now I look across the field and I got him to deal with. And it was unbelievable. But when the whistle blew, we scored in the first 52 seconds. Claudio scored, made it 1-0. And I can remember jogging back to midfield and I was dead tired. It was just excitement, everything. We just scored, 96,000 people chanting USA. And I was like, I got 89 more minutes to chase these guys around. We ended up losing, unfortunately, 3-1, but it was 2-1 late. And then we were pushing some numbers and we ended up losing 3-1. But against a team like Argentina, it was incredible. And then we went on to beat Tunisia and then played Portugal in a must-win game, and we tied 1-1 in a game that we played really, really well. So, I mean, just that experience was great. Bruce Arena was our head coach, and the whole Olympics, it was such a great learning environment. Not only learning from Bruce, but also my teammates. It was fantastic.
And then maybe go a little further now with then you jump ahead to the '98 World Cup, where you had a pretty. I remember back in the time, it seemed like the group was pretty well established,
Yes.
going up before that period of time, and then all of a sudden come guys like yourself and Chad Deering,
Yeah.
coming into the team, a few others, I'm sure. Maybe take us into that, and you mentioned Bruce and then Steve Sampson, those two key figures in U.S. soccer during that time period.
Yeah, that was, I mean, from 96 to, 98, it was just a whirlwind because obviously the MLS starts at the beginning of 96. So I play 4 games with the crew and then go into full-time residency with the Olympic team and then join the crew again at the back end. So able to see the beginning of MLS start, playing the Olympics, and then 2 years later, the World Cup's rolling around. I got my first cap at the end of 97 after just okay year with the crew. But I got called up and I played. I had about 3 caps at the end of 97, maybe 2. But I got called into Big Bear, which was right before we played Mexico. So I got called into that one. It was just going to be a fitness camp. But I guess I showed pretty well before that, and then sat on the bench for Mexico in Azteca Stadium, which was incredible. And then we ended up qualifying for the World Cup in Canada. and then I got called back at the beginning of '98 for the big, where they call in just a large number, and I did fairly well. Unfortunately, I took an ankle injury that I kind of had to make a decision. Am I going to sit out, or am I going to push to possibly make the World Cup roster? And I was like, you know what, I'm going to battle through, and this is once in chance a lifetime. So I can remember I got called to the game. We were in Austria, playing Austria, ended up winning 3-0. I played in the midfield with Chad Deering and Claudio, and we played really well and ended up beating Austria 3-0. And that's when Steve said, Mays, we're going to take you to the World Cup. Not only to push, but also, as I was 23 at the time, as one of the younger players. It was like you said, I was one of the youngest on the team. I think it was me, Frankie, and probably Claudio were the 73s at birth years, which just dated myself, right? But
I'm a 74, Brian, so I'm up there with you.
we were some of the younger guys on the roster, but I can remember when Steve mentioned it to me, and it was just, one of those feelings that you can't even describe it. It's something you fight for, and you prepare for, and you train for your whole life, and then to make the World Cup roster was incredible.
How do you reflect back now going on to the World Cup? That was kind of the first World Cup that I watched. I remember coming home from school when Klinsmann scored twice, right? When you guys played Germany.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to bring that up, but how do you reflect back on that World Cup? You played in all 3 games. You were an important part of the team. It's the biggest stage. You said, it's a once in a lifetime opportunity, but then at the same time, it didn't necessarily go quite as well as you guys would have liked. So 20 years on now, how do you look back on it? Is it just pride? Is it a little bit of disappointment? How do you feel?
Yeah. It was an incredible experience for me, and I'll take nothing. It was awesome. We didn't do as well as we wanted to. We had a really tough group. To start off against Germany, and we played poorly. Just couldn't quite get a rhythm, and obviously Germany was really good. And then the big game was Iran. Our game 2, that was one that we needed to win. We should have won. And we go down early, we tie it back up, and then they beat us a little bit late and made it 2-1. And that was a tough one. And then our third game, we were already pretty much out of it against Yugoslavia, and they obviously beat us 1-0. But the experiences that you take away, the learning process, everything I learned. It was a veteran group, so I learned a lot from the guys, learned a lot from Coach Sampson. It was an incredible experience. Do you want to do better? Yeah, of course. We would love to go to the next round, and I think everybody was disappointed that we didn't. But that was a good point to see just how far soccer's come. And, when you don't qualify for that next round, you should be disappointed that we didn't. But it was a tough group. I forgot what Germany was, in the world. They were top. I think they were top 5. Yugoslavia was the top 10. I think we were 12 or 14. So 3 of the teams were in the top 12 or 14, and then Iran was again the game that we should have and needed to win. But
it seemed like Sampson just threw every attacking player on the squad in that Iran game to push forward and get the goal.
Tried getting it. Yeah, it was. We tried. Actually, I subbed in late that game. I didn't think I was going in, and he ended up putting me in the back, almost like a center back to play. I was supposed to play in front of the 2. We were only playing 3 at the back at the time. And, I went in as a center back, but was supposed to play in front of the 2 because we were just pushing numbers. I ended up playing center back. I was a little bit probably deeper than I should have been. And I can remember playing a pass. I played it into Preki, trying to get it, got picked off, and they scored the second goal. And I was like, God, I just, you remember those instances, but it was a great experience overall.
Yeah, I bet. I playing in the Olympics than playing the World Cup. It doesn't get any better than that. How would you compare? You played in the Olympics. You played for Bruce Arena. Mm-hmm. In the World Cup, you played for Steve Sampson, who are 2 U.S. soccer icons, especially in Bruce's case. How would you compare the 2 of their coaching styles?
Bruce, I would say he was a great man manager. I mean, he took a group and he did it with DC United as well. I mean, you just knew what your roles were. Everybody knew what their role was. And then, if the right midfielder went in and whoever went in there just knew the expectation. I always say that I thought Bruce kept things simple, but yet at the same time, he was just a great man manager. And you knew your role, and everybody knew their role. So just from a organizational standpoint, it was easy to slide guys in and out because you knew exactly what was expected. But Steve was great too. He's a good communicator. He was great with me, with the younger guys. He was honest and upfront, and I learned a ton just from him, just in our communication. So I mean, again, like you said, two great coaches. When you think of soccer in this country, and I was really blessed to have them both. And it's great just from a coach.
Can you talk a little bit about, I remember the early days of the Crew, 96 when the team was formed, and, first year of the team, and coming in, there was a highly touted forward named Brian McBride that came in as like the young American guy. And then yourself, like, I remember it was Brian McBride, then Brian Maisonneuve as well. Where, I just remember those names stuck out as like two of the names that seemed like the club was really pushing. And maybe just talking with, we talked with Paul Bravo about San Jose Clash '96. So maybe just tell us what was it like for the Crew and in that year and then all those early days.
Yeah, I mean, it was. It puts such a smile on your face when you think about where the league was at and where it's at now. I mean, it's so much fun to watch the MLS right now and just to see the different facilities from the stadiums to the training. Every time I go to Atlanta to recruit, I mean, you go to their training field and you're like, I mean, this is incredible. Our first 2 years in '96, we played at Ohio Stadium here at the football stadium. We got great crowds of, 20,000+ people, but it holds 105,000 people. So, but they did a great job doing just in terms of the game day experience. We actually trained right outside of the football stadium, which was the intramural fields back then and still are. I can remember some of the trainings we would have to kick people off the field because they're playing ultimate Frisbee on it. And we got a professional training coming up. So, I mean, it just, some of those experiences the appearances that we did, we had some of our teammates were actually in the Crew Cat costume, doing appearances and signing autographs, just doing whatever we could to help promote the game, promote the club. It's such a family, the Crew is such a family club. It's a great organization, and it was no different when it started. But I mean, some of the stories of those early years are pretty comical, but they do make you feel good when you look at the league and where it's at right now. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah, you played with so many big players. That the Crew at that time had so many good players. Brian McBride, Cunningham, Brad Friedel was there for a bit as well before he went
was in goal. Yeah.
Yeah. So the amount of ability in that team. Did you guys? Going up against DC United, they seem to have the upper hand, and just every year. And my coach here, John Harks, he still talks about the '96 Cup final. So can you just go into kind of those years in terms of how close were you in terms of becoming the DC United of that era?
Yeah, DC United was just, I mean, I said it with Bruce, they were just always so organized. We had a lot of dynamic players. And when we were all fitting together, we played more out of a 3-5-2 that was a little bit, we had a lot of freedom. And when we were rolling and our rhythm was good and the guys were on, I mean, I can remember a couple of years we would beat DC United, pretty handily. But when it came to those close games and when they counted, DC could just always rely on their structure and their organization. And they just always beat us in that Eastern Conference final. And they really had our number. But again, credit to Bruce and to the that whole locker room. They were organized, and even when they were having a rough day, they could fall back their organization, and they always just found a way to beat us in those big games. But always some really good rivals for sure.
It's funny the way you describe DC, because it kind of sounds like the way John wants Greenville Triumph to be as well.
Yeah.
Even when we're not playing well, just dig in, get a 1-0 result, and move on. So,
and find ways. And in those big games, when it's tourney time or when it's playoffs, and you got to rely on, sometimes you're just not. Your passes just aren't connecting, or whatever the case may be. Rhythm's off. You got to find a way to dig out those results. And yeah, I could see John wanting to find that same kind of structure and organization as well.
Can you just talk a little bit about? I remember very fondly, the '99, the stadium opening, and this like the first soccer specific stadium.
Yeah,
it seems like such a momentous occasion. Seemed like such a beautiful stadium from we can see on TV, and then now to still have a legacy even this day for the games with the U.S. and Mexico. But just going back to that era, must have been a huge thing for you guys to be playing in that stadium.
We felt so special to have the first soccer specific stadium. We also had our own training fields. We were pretty fortunate here in Columbus. Like I said, it's an unbelievable club. But
did you have to kick anybody off of it or no?
Yeah, no ultimate frisbee players on there. But yeah, we did do our time though, having to train on those intramural fields for a while. But just to open up the first soccer specific stadium was really, really neat. And I really think that was kind of the, 96, 97, 98. How's the league going to go? Is it going to make it? We had a little bit of expansion, then we lost the Florida teams, and what's going to happen? Is the league going to make it? And once that soccer specific stadium kind of was built, it was like, this is for real. It's going to make it. And sure enough, you watch it, the Lamar Hunt, who is, obviously one of the founding fathers. He just did an unbelievable job, and just to continue to build the league. And now you look at it, and to be buying players, to be building these training facilities, like I said, watching Atlanta games of 70,000 people week in and week out, Seattle. It's incredible. And just even the product on TV. Back in '96, I think we might have had 2 or 3 cameras that were at the top of these stadiums. And when we would play Dallas in the Cotton Bowl at 2:00 on Univision, I can remember it was so hot, and trying to watch those games in video after, I was like, how does anybody watch this production? Because it wasn't great. And now you watch the games on TV, and they're fantastic. I don't miss an MLS game now. And if I do, I gotta watch the highlights. So it's incredible to see where it started and where it's at right now.
The way you speak about the crew and the Columbus area in general, I definitely see when it was a couple of years ago when there was that movement to kind of save the crew.
Yeah,
I can definitely see where that comes from, and the pride for that club, for sure.
Sorry about that. My light shut off on me. Give me 1 second.
The motion sensor's off.
Yeah, I know. Sorry.
First world problems, right?
Yeah, right.
How much, as you going forward so you opened the stadium in '99, had a lot of success between '96 and '99 with all the good players that you had, and then in 2000 you kind of, in your personal career, you hit a roadblock in terms of injuries with your ankle injury, and I'm assuming that was lingering from the build up to the '98 World Cup. And ankle injuries just never go away, unfortunately, as they seem. So how close were you during that period to just saying, all right, I've had a good career, I've done a lot, I just want to hang it up? And then second question to that is, being that you didn't, and you played 4 more seasons, won an Open Cup, won a Supporters Shield, how much pride does that bring you that you didn't just hang up the boots and go into coaching?
Yeah, that's a whole nother story. I had some crazy ankle injuries starting in '98, and just didn't have the time to rest it. Had, total, I think I have about 8 surgeries on my right ankle. And it was right after the '99 season. So I played in the World Cup, had an ankle surgery right after it to try to tighten some stuff. Played in the '98 Open Cup, and it was feeling okay. But then I played all in '99, and it just wasn't right. And I saw a bunch of different doctors, and they did a bunch of different tests. Thought I had nerve damage, thought I had this issue, that issue. and went around the country, and nobody could find out what was going on. And it wasn't until the beginning of, so I played all of 99, just frustrated, had a really tough season, and said to my doctor here in Columbus, I said, Doc, you got to do something. I can't play like this anymore. And he said, listen, Mays, you may have torn your peroneal tendons, which are the ones that help your stabilization of your ankle. And you have 3 of them. And I ended up tearing, I had 2 of them torn, and the third one was okay, the smallest one. But he went in and patched it up in January. But he's like, Mays, I don't know if it's gonna hold. I had an option to do a really big surgery that would have kept me out about 16 months, and I chose to go with the lighter one so that I could maybe play in 2000. Long story short, I ended up getting a staph infection. It ate away the surgery, and at one point, when I went into the hospital, when I went under, I was still out of it, and the doc came up and said, we're trying to save his ankle. We don't know if he'll ever play again, let alone run again. So then got it all cleaned up. Everything looked okay. The infection was gone. And then I said, Doc, I can't end like this. And he said, okay. And I flew out to the East Coast. Dr. Myers did a surgery where he put a tube in my ankle, and it created like a little sheath. And then I went back 6 weeks later. He took the tube out. There it goes again. He took the tube out and put a cadaver tendon in there. And then about 8 months later, after rehab and everything, I was able to get back on the field. But even Dr. Myers said, listen, it may last a month. It may last 3 or 4 years. I don't know. This is one of those surgeries that you definitely won't get to 100%, but you may be able to play a little bit longer. And it was kind of one of those things that, you know how it is, you play your whole life. I'm like, man, I can't end like this. I got to see what I can do. And, through some unbelievable doctors and, trainers, I was able to, after 16 months from game to game, 8 surgeries on my ankle, I was able to get back on the field in 02, and actually had my most productive season in 02. But it was one of those, I was back. I made I was an alternate for the 02 World Cup, which when Bruce called me and said, basically you didn't make it, I was like, yeah, I knew I wasn't playing at that level where I wanted to be. So, but I was happy to be back on the field. And, I say, but every time I took an injury, I never quite got back to, if I came back at 85%, every time I rolled my ankle or got in a tough tackle, I was like 83% and then 75%. And then by the end of it, it was like, okay, I'm not playing the way I want to play. It's time to retire. And so I hung him up. I had my last surgery in 03 and then hung him up at the end of 04. But I say it all the time. That injury was, even though it ended my career and really slowed it down from 98 to the time I retired, it was a true blessing because it really made you appreciate every time, being away from the game for 16 months. Every time I run on the treadmill to this day, I'm just so thankful to be able to run again. I was never a runner, but now to be able to run and to play and to do stuff, I'm so blessed because it was almost taken away. So really fortunate in that. It really put a different spin on life, which was really a blessing from that injury.
Just looking back on those years, is there any stories or any fun experiences you could talk about? Just very fine. So many great memories, great times, and just like anything you could share, like that do you think people would enjoy listening to, like a interesting or fun story? That those years with the crew were able to bring you, maybe a unique opportunity or something like that. There's so many. I already alluded towards it a little bit, just in the early years of the crew. First of all, it was so funny here in Columbus. People in 96, when the league started, they would either think you're a millionaire because you're a professional athlete, or they would be like a professional soccer player. Like, what's your real job? And there was really no in between. Either people thought you were a millionaire because you're a pro, or they're like, professional soccer, like that doesn't even exist. What do you do for a real job? Which was kind
kind of interesting. But to do all those little things, in 96, 97, you just wore so many hats. And I can remember the first couple of years with the crew, after every game, you'd go through something called Autograph Alley. And after the game, there would be 300-400 people, waiting to get autographs. And you would go through and sign everybody's autograph, which obviously doesn't exist anymore. But it was just the front office really wanted us to reach out to the community. And even though it was time consuming and sometimes the last thing you want to do after a game, you really got to meet the community and be part of it, because you would meet, like I said, 300-400 people after every game and have a conversation with them and really get to know them, which was a lot of fun. I mean, even though at the time you like I said, you're wearing 3 or 4 different hats. Sometimes you're the mascot. Other times you're doing certain things that you never do now. It really helped you get ingrained in the community and really feel part of it, which was really neat. We did some crazy appearances that we're looking back on them. We're quite funny right now.
And you'd like to share with us?
I remember one we did, and we had to wear it. It wasn't underwear, but it was close to it. And we had to walk around the store, and we were supposed to, talk and just interact with people. But we were wearing very little. And I can remember my teammates was doing push-ups so that he just looked bigger in the stuff we were wearing. So like behind the clothes racks, he'd be cranking out some push-ups, so he looked a little bit puffier and looked a little bit better. That was a good time.
I can imagine. We all have one guy on the team who's doing the push-ups or doing the bicep curls that you don't even need to do.
For sure. But
looking back on your playing career, like before we wrap up and go into a little bit of the coaching at the end, you've won you've been Herman Trophy winner, played a national final at Indiana, played an Olympics, World Cup with the national team, and then Open Cup and supporter shield with the crew. Is there one kind of moment or accomplishment in your career that brings you the most pride?
I mean, they're all, I'm really fortunate, like I said at the beginning, just to have all those experiences. Even in high school, I was able to win a state championship, and just, winning any type of championship, you always remember those. Playing in the national championship and the Olympics. I mean, they're all just great experiences. Like I said, that I'm fortunate enough to be able to pass along to now my players. I don't know if there's one that really sticks out. The one walking out into the Olympics in front of the 96,000, though, I mean, that still gives me the chills on the arms and my hair standing up just talking about it, because it was such a pride, and I can hear the USA being chanted, and half the people in Legion Field probably weren't soccer fans, but they were US fans, and to represent your country in that type of setting was pretty special.
Yeah, it's interesting. I just think of it from my perspective, and obviously I've never played with the national team, never played in MLS, but I've had some success in the professional level, college level, etc. And the one game I look back on is a high school game. We lost in the Final Four.
Yeah.
And that's the one game, like if I could do it over, I'd want to win that game. And I think that not all people, obviously want to win the state championship, but not all people are like, oh, I regret some professional. They all think like the professional level is more important than others. Sorry, yeah. I got a cat on the table. It's distracting me. But
no worries. I'm sitting in the dark.
Do you want to do the light again, or?
Yeah, let me get it real quick. I don't know why he keeps doing it. I can't.
Well, we got our first cat appearance on the podcast here, so nice. This is Milo. He likes coming over. But yeah, I just think it's interesting. Like when players reflect on their career, it's not always the highest levels that bring them the most pride. A lot of times, like you just mentioned, winning a state championship in high school is something you're really proud of. So
yeah,
and that's another conversation entirely with the way high school soccer is now. We don't have to get into that. But
yeah. I had a quick question I was curious about, because we've been talking with a lot of different people, but Kevin Hartman was telling us about how he had an opportunity with Genk in Belgium, which I didn't know about. And did you have any opportunities, particularly after '98, in the World Cup, maybe, did you go to Europe? Did you go on trials? Was there the Brian Maisonneuve to Manchester United that we never heard about or anything like that?
Yeah. No, I know after the Germany game, just talking to my agent, there was some interest, but because of the way the Iran game went and the rest of the World Cup, I think some of that faded. I was really happy with. I was never one of those players that said I got to go overseas for my career. With the start of the MLS, being in Columbus, I was really, really happy. I felt like I was growing as a player. So I was pretty happy. Now, if the right opportunity came, don't get me wrong, I might have looked to go, but I was pretty happy here, with the MLS. And then I did go at the end of '96, I went to Sunderland for like 2 weeks and trained with them. And it wasn't even a tryout. It was the crew actually kind of sent me over there to just develop some relationships and train during the off season. But at the end, I talked to the manager at the time, and he just said, "Can you get a work permit?" And I was like, I wasn't playing with the national team at the time. And I was like, "I don't think so." And he said, "Well, we enjoyed watching you play, but there's nothing we can do in terms of opportunities if you can't get a work permit." But that was it. And I was fine with it. Like I said, I enjoyed the MLS and I was pretty happy staying here.
Yeah, because he did see, guys like, Friedel went to Liverpool, McBride went to Fulham a little later on after that. So it just shows that you were one of the guys in that team. And I just remember you being, such a key part of it. And as a fan, just recognizing your name. And so, I wasn't sure because there were some real quality players, that went on to have great careers, were having great careers at the time, but then continued that success in Europe. And I remember at that time, Friedel had a hard time, I think, with the work permit at Liverpool even.
Yeah.
So, I wouldn't have been surprised to have heard, some club, in Germany or something like that, maybe, especially after seeing you in '98. But what was it like going the other way? You had Robert Varzica coming in, and veteran player, had played at a very high level in England, Polish national team. What was his influence like on you guys as young up and coming type guys in the game?
Yeah, Robert is great. He was a fantastic player, and I mean, you talk about one of those teammates that you learn something every single day from him, from his professionalism, just the way he attacked training. He's one of those guys that you would just playing with him. You just pick up little subtleties that you throw in your game. And Robert was kind of one of those mentors that, when he came over, he was on top of his game, and just to be able to train with him, to see him train, to watch his little nuances. I mean, really to add some of those into my game was so helpful. I mean, you always think that the coaches are the ones that, help you get better, but training with the right teammates and paying attention to what they do, how they move, how they do certain little things, you can pick up a lot on. And I definitely did with Robert. I did all the time with Claudio. He's at my same age, and whenever we had national team camps or, able to play with him, he was the same way. That, man, he would just do little movements and you would pick that up in your game, and you could really learn a lot from your teammates as well as your coaches, but, from your teammates alone. And Robert was one of those as well.
That's an interesting point. Do you, after you've retired in 2004, you then moved on to a little bit coaching with U.S. Soccer, and then you moved into the college game as an assistant.
Yep.
And so how can you kind of go into a little bit of your progression as a coach after your playing days, and how you brought some of those similar experiences, like with training with Claudio Reyna, how you brought that into your players that you were coaching now?
Yeah, I mean, I retired. 2004 was my last season. So I had my last surgery, like I said, it was the beginning of 2004. And by probably by the end of preseason, I knew I was done. I only told my wife that it was going to be my last year, and it was time to, I wanted to make sure I could continue to run when I was older. And I felt like if I kept going, that might be taken away. And then coaching was definitely something I wanted to get into. So I retired in 2004. And in 2005, a spot opens up with the U17s down in Bradenton. They used to have the residency program down there. John Hackworth was the head coach. Keith Falk was there, and he was looking to hire 3 people. And I was going to go directly from retirement. I was going to go into college is where I thought my next spot was going to be. And then this job opened up, and I guess they were looking for like an ex-player, ex-national team type guy to kind of fill that role. And there was, I forgot who it was, but it fell through with him, and Hack needed to hire somebody. I didn't know John, but I heard some really good things about him. And I went down there and interviewed, and I got the job. So my first coaching job was with the U17 national team, which was great. And then I got my license, my B and my A. And I was down there. I thought it was going to be a pretty short stint. I figured maybe 1 cycle, 2 years, whatever. And I was there for total of 3 cycles at different times and almost 4 years. And it was a great experience. I was also, Thomas Rongen brought me on as an assistant with the U20 national team. So I say it all the time, those 3 years down in Bradenton, because it was just soccer. Back then, everybody went through Bradenton. MLS had their preseasons, the national team, the 20s, the 17s, the full team was there. And I knew all the coaches, so you could go watch sessions, you could pick their brains. So that 3.5 years, I feel like was like 20 years of experience where it was just soccer, learning training sessions, talking the game. Just we had 5 coaches with the U17s, Hack, Falk, Raul Diaz-Arce, I don't know if you remember that name.
Yep.
And then Timmy Mulqueen was our keeper coach, but just 4 other fantastic coaches. And then with the 20s that I went on a lot of trips that I was with them for almost 3 years was Thomas Rongen, who's obviously a legend. Dave Durr was one of the assistant coaches. Myself and Timmy Mulqueen went on a lot of those trips too. So, I mean, in 3.5 years, I just feel like I got so much experience, and I was so fortunate to be in that environment. The hardest part about that, though, is when you would go to qualifying. I can remember I was with the 20s and qualifying in Trinidad, and I was gone for almost 28 days. My son's 3 years old. My daughter's about to be born. And I remember coming back from that trip, even though we qualified, it was an awesome trip. I was like, I don't know if I can do this anymore. Just missing time with a young family was really hard on me. So I thought, you know what, my next step is going to be college, where I thought I was going to go. And the opportunity opened up at Louisville with Ken Lola, again, a fantastic coach. And I was only there for 2 seasons. And then the opportunity opened up at IU with Todd Yeagley, who was my teammate at IU with the Columbus Crew. And I've known Todd since we've been 13. And he got the head job at IU and said, Mays, why don't you come back to IU? And I wouldn't have left Louisville if it wasn't to come back to, my alma mater in Bloomington. So then I was there for 9 seasons. And then the opportunity here at Ohio State opened up. And again, I probably wouldn't have left for any other program, but to be back in Columbus, to be part of this athletic department is pretty special.
What have been some of the, well, actually, one thing I'm thinking about too is next steps even, college soccer has been such a big part of what you've been doing for many years now. But do you ever get that itch to go back to the pro game, and what type of opportunity, would be something that would fulfill that interest?
Yeah, no, I love watching MLS games, and you see where it's at right now. And there are times you're like, man, that would be great. But I really enjoy college just in terms of, I love to teach the game. I think the pro game is probably a little bit more managing. I know you still teach and you still coach, don't get me wrong. But there's a lot of managing, I think. And I really like the college game just in sense the players are a little bit older, but they still have a lot to learn technically and tactically. And then, they're in the age 18 to 22 where you can really have a positive influence on their life as well, which is pretty special just in terms of growing, as a human being. And I like that part of it as well. So I really enjoy college. I've had a couple opportunities to be assistant coaches here and there. And it's just, it's in the program game, there's sometimes the security isn't quite there either. And with a young family to bounce around from city to city can be tough. So, college is it's a great fit for me. to be at a really great university, I'm pretty lucky.
What like who would be some of the players that you've they don't necessarily have to be the most accomplished players, but who are some of the players that you are most proud of, what they've been able to take something that you've been able to share with them and incorporate that and gone on and you really felt like you had an influence and you're proud of what you were able to do with them?
Oh man, I mean, I've been pretty lucky with every step I've been. Kids have gone on to play at the next level, whether it's with the U17s, the U20s. My first U17 group was the 86, 87, 88, 80, and then there were a few 89s. Josie Altadora was one of the 89s that I spent a lot of time with right when I got down there. And probably that group kind of pops into my head right away because that was kind of my first coaching experience. So I get put in with that 89 group and Josie's one of them. And, back with the 17s, you would have two age groups down there. You would have the oldest group and then you would have like the U17s and kind of the U16s down there, the best U16s. So that was kind of that 87, 88, 88, 89 group. And Josie was one of the younger ones and he was with the 89s most of the time. And I can remember right before the World Cup, right before qualifying, he was with me in Japan and came back and I was like, Hack, you might have to bring this kid along. He's pretty special. And Hack already knew it, but he was just kind of coming into his own. And Josie was such obviously a young kid at the time. And I can remember how like shy and innocent he was and afraid to do too much. And I was like, Josie, you are the man, and he went on to play in the World Cup. And then shortly after he signs with, who'd he sign with? New York. And then his career just takes off. And it was really neat to see, cause I can remember we're about to get on the field to play. The 17s are about to play because the MLS teams would come through Bradenton and we're about to play one of the little scrimmages against the MLS teams. And I can remember Josie being so nervous and scared. And I'm like, Josie, you're going to be out there in a year or two. I mean, this is your level. You can do it. And he's like, Coach, these guys are pros. We're going to get slaughtered. And I mean, literally 8 months later, he's starting for New York, banging home goals. And it's really neat to see when guys like that just grow right in front of your eyes and develop and really take hold of it and have a great career.
Yeah.
What a special experience though, living in Bradenton, and at the very least, you got a great tan. So,
yeah, it was a good spot. It was a good spot.
Dave, do you have anything else or no?
Just the only thing is just next steps for Brian. Where he sees himself going. I guess with Ohio State and what the plans are for him going forward.
Yeah, no, I mean, I love being in Columbus, back in Columbus. And like I already said, it's a great university, an incredible athletic department. John Bloom, who was a coach before I got here, he did a great job with this program. And I really want to just continue to grow and develop it. I mean, I would love to, to win some Big Ten championships and some national championships here in Columbus. And, I think between the conference, like I said, and all the resources here at Ohio State, I don't think there's any reason why we can't. And I'm excited to continue to grow and develop this program. And I'll be honest with you, that's my future goal. I'd love to get a national championship up in the, up around the field here at Ohio State. And I think it has everything to be able to do that.
Yeah, it's definitely a reasonable goal considering, yourself, the people I'm sure you have around you, and then the facilities and the resources you have as well at the Ohio State University.
Yeah, it is a good spot, and we're really enjoying it.
Yeah, Jake, you have anything else?
No, just thanks so much for your time, Mace. I guess I'll call you Mace. We're friends now. Thanks so much for your time. Fingers crossed that 2021 spring, you guys, you're planning on having a season, right, in the Big Ten?
Yes, we're going to, as of right now, the NCAA said, games can start February 3rd. The national championship is the middle of May. So the framework's there. It's just plugging in everything in terms of schedules and games, and trying to figure out the whole thing, which we know can change every day, every week for sure.
Yeah, fingers crossed for all that. I can only imagine if I was in college right now, I would be miserable. So I feel bad for the kids now. I mean, I know some kids still playing in college. I feel bad for it, and I'm hoping things work out for the spring so you guys can get a proper season in. But thank you so much. You were so gracious with your time. So it's been a pleasure. I love learning about kind of the history of the game, and you're definitely a big part of that. So
I appreciate it. Well, I appreciate you guys having me. And if there's anything you guys need down the road, don't ever hesitate to give me a shout.
Yeah, definitely. Is there anywhere people can follow you? I don't think you're a big social media guy, Brian, but like, should we just say to our listeners, follow Ohio State men's soccer and they'll keep up with you?
That would be great. Yeah, I can confirm that. I'm not a big social media guy, but yeah.
Probably better off.
What's that?
You're probably better off.
Yeah, Ohio State men's soccer. Okay,
great. And then they'll be able to keep track of you and what you're able to do with the program, which is, for me, if you're going to follow a college soccer program, that's definitely one I'd be following. Or, just the fans of U.S. soccer, again, to have a coach like yourself and all the things that you've accomplished, the game experience you can share with them. And, if I were a top young player, that I would be on my short list of schools to go to. So
I appreciate it.
Yeah, really appreciate your time, Brian. Thank you so much.
Anytime. Thanks so much for having me.
Thanks,
until next time, Dave. I'm the athlete.
I'm the advocate.
We are the Aristocrats.
We're the Aristocrats.